Howdy, it's your boy Skinny Penis. It's Victor Pitstop. Welcome back. Howdy, welcome back. Continuing on part 3 of my car abuse stories. If you haven't watched the first 2, that's okay. Feel free to watch the B15 Sentra one, the previous one. Link is here. But the too long didn't watch or don't want to watch, which is totally cool, is I had a B15 Sentra SER non-spec V that I got in high school and took to college with me. Ended up blowing the engine doing an autocross, and it got impounded because my apartment complex had it towed because it was inoperable, and we were working on it. Took the motor out, sat for a month. They got it towed without any warning. The towing place is a sleazy business and kept incurring charges on it over time until I couldn't afford it anymore, thus sending it to impound. Lost the car. Sucks. I was young and didn't fight it, but I probably could have done something legally to get it back. I just didn't know any better. So now Victor is without a car again. And with the money I had saved up to try to get this Sentra out, which never was enough, I had a friend tell me, hey, I've got a buddy I work with that has a 93 Eagle Talon for sale. The only caveat is it has a blown head gasket. However, it's only $500 if we can replace that. The Eagle Talon, for those of you who don't know, is a reskinned Mitsubishi Eclipse. Back in the day, Mitsubishi and Chrysler had a merger together for a little bit for an off-kilter company called Diamond Star Motors, which was basically sharing parts, and essentially it was Chrysler just reskinning and rebranding the same thing that Mitsubishi had. So this Eagle Talon was a front-wheel drive 4G63 turbo, and I was a little bummed out that it wasn't the all-wheel drive variant, but it was fine. It was something. It was only $500 plus a head gasket. Previous owner had 2 Eagle Talons at the time. One was all-wheel drive that he actually ripped that motor out and put it into the front-wheel drive one just so he can build the all-wheel drive one. And he told me that the all-wheel drive one was running low 13-second quarter miles, which to me, back in 2009, like, that's a fast car. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I get the Talon towed to my apartment complex back in the same parking area where we worked on the Sentra out in the open. Me and my friend were like, hey, let's just knock out the head gasket in a day. They won't know any better. And we did just that. And the Eagle Talon was a cool car. I'm so sorry I don't have any pictures of it. It only lasted maybe a month, but it was this 93 Eagle Talon in green. It was a 6-bolt motor that was put in there. So a 6-bolt motor was a little bit of a stronger motor than the newer at the time 4G63. We got the car running, ran great, had a boost leak for a little bit, but we ended up kind of tinkering with the system. It was an internal wastegate, which is kind of weird. Usually it's external wastegate and you could do like a blow-off valve and all this stuff. This car did not have a way to relieve the boost pressure like a blow-off valve would, so we did some janky stuff to get it going right. The car sounded like an airplane taking off. It was so cool. Like, you just hear this really high-pitched like kind of start, and you're like, oh shit, here we go, and it would just take off. Like, the car was actually very fast. Definitely had a lot of torque steer. It was a lot of power for the front tires to handle. This one was a short stint, so this story's not very long-winded. I was at work with the car. It was running great, and it was leaving work. I used to just pull out of work like a bat out of hell, like any college kid would. So one day I'm pulling out and I just gun it. As I'm gunning it, all of a sudden I hear like a pop, and then a bunch of white smoke ends up billowing out of the rear end. I'm like, oh no, here we go. It wasn't making any rod knocking sound or ticking sounds or anything weird. However, it was not hitting boost at all. The car was bogging so bad that I actually couldn't get it over 35 miles per hour. Luckily, I could take the access road all the way home. I did cause a little bit of traffic by having people in the right lane stuck behind me, just trying to limp home. I limped it home to the apartment complex just fine. Thinking about it now, it was probably just a boost leak of some sort, or maybe something to do with the intercooler. You know, because if you have an intercooler or a coupler pops off, bogged down a bit to where the car can die. But I didn't bother with any of that. I was like, okay, I wanted to flip the car, sell it for like $2,000. But at this state, I was like, okay, let me just see if I can get $1,000 from it, which I did. I had somebody that was very knowledgeable with DSMs, and they probably got a steal with this car knowing how to fix it properly. They came came and they put it on the flatbed for $1,000. So essentially I made like $300 from this car because I had put in around $700 with the head gasket and the tow to get to my apartment complex. And now I've got this $1,000 and it's still not enough to get the Sentra out. The Sentra is pretty much long gone by now. Sent to an impound lot, and it would have been way more. I'm sure it went to some sort of auction. I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I need a form of transportation. I can find a 240SX for like $1,200 because again, this is 2009, 2010 time where it was actually pretty cheap. I ended up finding this podunk 240SX out in the middle of nowhere country, Texas. Check out the 240SX and it's in terrible shape. Like I was saying that, oh, it just needs a new battery. We're like, nah, man. But as we're leaving, I see this camo painted Isuzu Trooper 2. And I'm like, what's up with that? He's like, yeah, that's actually our ranch car. It runs good though. Okay, well, how much do you want for it? He's like, $1,000. I'm like, oh, well, I have $1,000 cash right here. For some reason, I give him the $1,000 because I'm desperate and I need a car. And I get this Isuzu Trooper 2. It's a weird car. It's a carbureted 4-cylinder truck thing that has really good off-roading capabilities. Like it has auto-locking hubs and it's all camo painted, and I'm young and I'm trolly and I love to troll, and that was a troll car for me. I'm like, hey, this can get me to work for a bit. And I used to take that thing off-roading. We put a stupid subwoofer in there. I would pull into campus lot with the sub blaring on some stupid metal song or some stupid rap song, and thought I was so cool in this really goofy over the top. I gotta level with y'all. I was not a very mature person, and I still am not. If I can get a time machine, go back in the day to myself and kick my own ass, I would in a heartbeat. The thing was, I was a goody kid in high school until I got to college. I turned to Frank the Tank, partied way too much, ended up dropping out because I partied too much. I was cringe as hell. So I've got this Isuzu Trooper 2, and we've got this wooded area that's by us that's like a huge block, and it's hidden. We used to go out there in the middle of the night, and I would off-road with this thing, and this Isuzu Trooper would cut through anything. The carbureted 4-cylinder motor actually had like a pretty decent amount of torque for what it was. Eventually, that truck started bucking a bunch, and we cleaned out the carburetor and did all this stuff to try to get it to work out well, and it just never worked right. Gotta say, I hate Harleys. Like, I'm sorry to those that like Harleys. I think that they sound disgusting. They're so obnoxious. Like Harleys, not the riders. I mean, like just the Harleys themselves are so obnoxious. Anyways, this is Isuzu Trooper 2 ended up having some issues, and I ended up selling that for $500. So I essentially lost money on this stupid camo painted ranch car. It was so dumb. So I'm without a car once again, and I need transportation to get to work. Luckily, me and my friends at the time took a winter break trip up to Colorado where my mom had moved to, and my mom was like, you can borrow the Land Rover. No, not one of those kind of Land Rovers. Back when I was in high school, she had purchased this 2004 Land Rover Freelander, which is basically a glorified Ford Escape because Ford owned them at the time. And it was this weird car. It was like a 2.5 liter or something weird. I'll put the specs up, but V6. It was like a small V6. And they were known for having issues where thermal expansion would occur differently in the heads compared to the short block. They would blow head gaskets. Fortunately, that never happened to us. However, back in high school, when we went and purchased this vehicle, my mom saw it on the CarMax lot, fell in love, and was like, I need this car. Purchased it, and it was like 15,000 miles on it at the time. We get it home, and the next day, the car didn't start. The transmission went out. Thank the car gods for warranty. We got the transmission replaced, so my mom had the Freelander going on the road again, but it also went through 7 different window regulators. On top of all this, the car went through another transmission at 35,000 miles. So this car had gone through 2 transmissions by the time I got it, and a bunch of different window assemblies. Classic Land Rover. I thought the Freelander was really cool. It does look cool. So going back to my situation in college, I end up going on the snowboarding trip with my friends. We passed by my mom's. She's like, take the Freelander back for a little bit, figure your shit out. Yes, ma'am. The first time I drove in snow was in a blizzard that followed me all the way from Colorado down through about halfway through New Mexico for like 5 hours, and I was white-knuckled, terrified, but we made it back. These things be roving the lands just fine. About a week later, my mom and I are talking on the phone, and she's like, hey, don't touch the car. don't modify it, don't do anything to the car. Unfortunately for my mom, I had already powder coated the wheels and VHT night shaded the rear taillights, so it already touched the car. And if you don't know what VHT night shade is, it's this spray that people spray on taillights or headlights that darkens them. You can make them black pretty much. It's like a spray-on tint. Very ricey. Again, Ricer, I cringe. Please forgive me. Going back to the area where we used to off-road by the apartment complex, yes, I took the Land Rover over there. Yes, off-roaded with it. And also on top of that, there was like a little course that was a rally course for us. And one of my roommates had this Toyota 4Runner, and we would go out there after it rained, and he would try to always see if I would get stuck. I never got stuck. Again, that Land Rover be roving. So it's a good car. I wasn't hyper abusive with it, but I did drive it the way I usually drive cars, which is moderately aggressive. Luckily, I didn't break it too bad or anything at all. Not yet. My mother, bless her soul, is like, hey, I'll help you purchase a vehicle. Just find something that's reliable. Oh Lord, man, there is a big accident up here. I'm telling y'all, like every time I have the camera on, there's something that happens. Earlier today, I saw 2 cars flipped over and I saw a car sideswipe. This is just a typical day in Austin, Texas. Nobody knows how to drive, and if they do, they're not paying attention. And like, jeez. There's a car, like the front end missing. Somebody got T-boned like terribly bad. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, y'all. Holy moly. All right, like I said, another typical day in Austin. Here we go on Craigslist again. My budget at the time, I think, was around $2,000. Yes, you could find a 240SX that's running for $2,000. I found one. Can you guess what a 240SX for $2,000 looks like? I'll say this, it's in not good shape whatsoever cosmetically, but the car did run well. For the moment, foreshadowing, of course. One morning before class, we're meeting, and I'm standing there and I hear this beautiful iron block rear-wheel drive exhaust note because it has a fart can exhaust on it. Pulling in, and I am just so excited. I'm so giddy. I'm telling y'all, I have no self-control whatsoever. This car was a junker. Haven't even looked at other cars. A word of advice to y'all would be, have some self-restraint of some sort. So the guy ends up letting it go for 1,800 bucks because I think he might have felt bad for me because it's a junker. The front bumper was completely chipped away, it was beat up. One of the headlights didn't have the headlight motor for the pop-ups that was working properly. In fact, it didn't work at all. So it had a lazy eye, and I had to prop it up by the external plastic housing of the pop-up to where I just popped it up and pulled out this like little piece of plastic just to hold it up. It was so janky. The trunk had like bubbles. Turns out it was from rust. It had all these issues. But hey, it's a running 240SX for under $2,000. Right away, of course, me and my buddies all end up getting this 240SX in the garage, and we start just sanding down the roof. We start sanding down the front bumper. We start doing all this stuff to it over like the next couple of weekends, bondoing the rear hatch because it actually has like profuse rust holes into it, which is just crazy. And we just start doing the typical young kid ricer shit to this car. Yet I'm so happy because I finally have my 240SX. This car I've gotten into a lot of trouble with. I got pulled over in it a couple of times and ended up getting into some legal trouble with this car because my sketchy, cringy, ricer ass didn't get this car title transferred over to me immediately. In fact, the previous owner got pissed off because he kept getting tickets in the mail on behalf of yours truly. I'm telling y'all, I was a real piece of work. And this is like half a year later. Finally had to re-meet up with the guy. He's pissed off. Sorry, Ryan, if you ever see this. And transfer the title properly, get everything signed off. Everything's copacetic. But I feel like a complete badass in this 240SX. It's my project car that I'm getting ready to build into my dream car. I'm gonna eventually have an SR20 in it, and then maybe an LS swap in there, body kit. It'll be like just a badass JDM car that I've always wanted. I'm lost. I'm like Mr. Takumi Fujiwara in this bitch. I've made it. One drunken party night, I end up crashing at my friend's house. because I'm just too far gone to drive back. Wake up early in the morning, like super hungover, still maybe a little drunk. And by this time I'm out of the apartment and in a house with some really good friends that I eventually get kicked out of because I'm just such a piece of shit. On my way home, it's like rainy, it's a Sunday. There is a big school parking lot next to the house that I lived at. I'm like, I'm gonna go drift. Yeah, you know, open differential, let's go drifting. Get out there, and I'm just like in the parking lot, clutch kicking, flinging it around, like trying my best. I get a few good ones, only going to the right. There's this one dude just standing out there in the middle of the parking lot for no reason, clapping and applauding me, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. I do like a couple donuts for the guy, and all right, cool, that was fun. I'm gonna go home and go to sleep. And I lived maybe like 1.5 miles away from the school. On my way home, I started hearing this ticking sound again. Start losing power. Knock, knock, who's there? It's a Rod. I perfectly get the S13 right in front of the house. As I had parked it, the car completely shut off and died. Like, it's done. A24, it's a wrap. Once again, Victor is without a car, but it's all my fault due to my negligence. What is wrong with me, you may be asking now. If you followed the whole stories, I don't know, and I've never learned. Still, there's still more to come after this. Again, my mom to the rescue is like, all right, let's get you a new engine. I don't understand how she didn't disown me at this point. I would have disowned my ass. Like, you were cut off. Nope, my mother is a saint. So I have another great idea. I go to a website called JDM Imports or something like that. I don't know if they're still around. They might have rebranded. They sell imported SR20s. Full swaps. I'm talking long block plus the transmission, everything. My mom, the hero, gets an SR20 shipped to my house, which at this time is another house because the house I was in prior where the 240SX broke down, I got kicked out of because I was behind on rent and I partied too much. And it's like that friend that goes out and parties all the time but says they can't afford anything, and that was me. And you're like, what are you doing with your life? Get your life together. I didn't have my life together. So rightfully so, they kicked me out of that house. My other friends get a house on the other side of the neighborhood, which is like a 2-mile drive. And we end up towing the 240SX to the new house, and they end up taking me in. So I've got this SR20 full swap pallet delivered to me at the new house, and we start cracking away right away. And bless my friends, we end up doing the swap over the next like month. I learned everything on how to swap into a 240SX at this time, including like you got to extend the pigtail to the MAF center, and I learned a lot. I'm very fortunate that I had the friends that I did because I wouldn't have got it done without them. We got it running. So now your boy has an SR20 swap 240SX. I'm like, this is it. And it is fast. I ran it with open downpipe for a month. Never got pulled over, luckily. I did have cops behind me at times, but I kept it very, very quiet. Sounded great with this open downpipe. Came with a Gretty downpipe from the JDM import, whatever they were. I'm telling y'all, like, this is a full everything. And again, I think it was like under $2,000 shipped. Like, it was great. We got it done in October, and I'm just like as happy as can be. Eventually, we end up getting kicked out of that house, the whole collective group, because there was an electrical fire. They ended up blaming it on us. Oh, in the meantime, we used to throw a lot of parties there, and of course, the neighborhood would complain about us. One time, I have to segue because one time we're throwing a party, and one of my other friends had purchased a 240SX shell that I ended up getting eventually, and he ended up purchasing an SR20 from a local guy. And we're throwing this party, the cops come and break it up. I'm in my room drunk, like hiding or something with some friends, but the cops end up taking the motor because we stupidly had the motor in the living room underneath the cover, and the cops actually searched like the whole house, and they ended up seizing the motor. I remember the motor getting put onto a flatbed, and my roommate at the time just sitting there just crying because he's just pissed off, and he's like, it's a Japanese motor. The reason why is because it had the VIN number scratched off. The cops, even though they didn't know what it was, they ended up taking the motor thinking, hey, this is a stolen property, like we got to seize this. And then poof, there goes his motor. And that night I end up getting really upset in a drunken rage. I get in my 240SX. I know where the person that sold the motor lives, and I drive to this person's place. And when I get there, I get out of my car and I'm standing there yelling out there like, get out of here, you blah, blah, blah. I don't know what I was doing. Just shaking my fists, yelling, and nobody comes out, and I'm standing there drunk, and I'm like, what am I doing right now? It's probably like 2 or 3 a.m. I finally end up leaving, just like, why am I doing this? And I drive back home, but as I'm driving home, I fly past a cop, drunk and speeding. Do I pull over? No. I've got that liquid courage in me, and what do? I downshift and I go flat out and I take off. I see the lights behind me fade away. But man, that SR20 was fast. Going back again, we end up getting kicked out of the house due to an electrical fire. The landlord, I think, had to find something to pin on us. They finally did. We got kicked out. I was living out of the 240 for a few months and kind of couch crashing, and it was a great car because, you know, you've got the hatch, you've got tons of room. I had blankets. It was like in the winter, and some nights I would just sleep in the car, just blanket it up, and would wake up and walk to class. 10 of 10 will vouch for the S13 hatch being a great mobile home. If you feel sorry for me, again, don't. I was a piece of shit. I promise I've learned. So one night I get off work, I'm driving home, it's on UTSA Boulevard, which is a two-way road, single lane for each, and there's a stoplight to get to campus, and then you can keep going straight. For some reason, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I can just turn in and go on campus and go the back way into the apartment complex where some friends were letting me crash on their couch for a while. And I was like, no, I'm gonna head straight just because I want to keep driving. I like driving. And so I'm going, and then there's a gas station, and as I'm going, I can't see shit, dude. Oh, bro. I'm driving through the light, and then guess what? This Land Rover Freelander that's going the opposite direction pulls right in front of me to turn into the gas station. And as she's doing this, stops right in front of me because she looks over and sees me locked up, smoke billowing out because no ABS. She just stops right in the middle of the road, and I wasn't speeding. I was doing about 40, which was the speed limit, but I lock up and I'm on bald tires. SR20 aside, the S13 doesn't have up-to-date inspection because I was on bald tires, and it was just kind of a death trap. I ended up plowing right into her car, gone. And this is only like a few months after I had finished the swap. It was heartbreaking. Like, that was a heartbreaking moment because like I finally had my 240SX. That was my project car that I got put together, SR20'd, and it's gone. In the blink of an eye, it's gone. Airbags didn't deploy because the car didn't have any airbags. Still to this day, I have this like little twitch in my neck that kind of hurts from time to time. I have to do like neck workouts because the whiplash was so bad that it messed up my neck. Mind you, this will be about 15 years ago in the next few months from now. Everything's shattered. Like, I am just torn up. I am depressed. My mom, she drops off the Land Rover for me. She's just at a loss of words. She's just so fed up at this point. And again, I do not blame her. I would have been off the ship a long time ago. And that was it. That was the first S13 that I had. The car that I wanted, my dream car, that's it. There it was, gone. To follow up with that, like 6 months later, the Land Rover ends up breaking down. It has like a misfire in a couple cylinders, it's sputtering, and you know, that car broke too, and we end up selling it. It was gonna be like 12 grand to get a full replacement motor and everything for that car, even though it probably wasn't a motor. I didn't actually build a motor. I think it might have been some things, but I went through like spark plugs to try, but the coils were like way too expensive. It just wasn't worth the money. So there you go. That's the Eagle Talon. That's the Isuzu Trooper. That's the Land Rover Freelander. That's the S13, all within like a span of 1.5 to 2 years. Thanks for hearing my belligerent, degenerate stories. There is more to come. Believe it or not. Did I learn anything from all this? Well, maybe, you know, you should tune in to the next few episodes because, again, I've broken too many cars. I really have. I know this one's a long one. Thank you so much for trudging through this with me. Hopefully you found some entertainment in it. Let me know in the comments, have you broken this many cars before due to the negligence? Have you broken cars? Like, please, like, there has to be somebody else out there that was young and dumb just like me. If you're young now and you're thinking about getting into cars, you're first now getting into it, please let this be a warning to heed. Till next time, bye!
Be sure to like and subscribe.